First of all, I'm not a native English speaker, so I'm sorry if I make some mistakes. This happened to me in 1992, in Argentina when I was 5. My mom and her best friend had a clothing store in our town. It wasn't really close to our house, but it was pretty close to my school, so I got to spend most of my afternoons there. There was a room in the back of the store with a little stove and table, so I used to spend my time there drawing, playing with my toys, etc. As you can guess, I used to get bored a lot. So I pestered my mom, begging for her to let me cross the street and go to the bakery in front of our store. My mom wouldn't let me go alone unless my brother was there to take me. But one day, maybe because the store was crowded or maybe because I'm almost 6, my mother helped me across the street and let me go in the bakery alone. She said, "I'll be waiting here." When I got to the bakery, which was really crowded, I tried to act cool while I was looking at all the sweet things I wanted to buy. Honestly, I don't remember when or how, but suddenly I was lifted up by a man in his 30s. This man said, "Hi, sweetie. What do you want me to buy?" I felt a pain in my stomach. I wanted him to put me down. But every time I tried to, he clenched me against him with even more strength. I remember trying to scream, but my voice didn't come out. I was paralyzed with fear. He kept talking and pointing at sweets while I was trying to get away from his arms. I remember I looked at the people around me, hoping that someone would notice that I was terrified. And on top of that, the bakery's owner wasn't there, so the 2 teenagers working there at the moment didn't recognize me. Finally, a quiet voice came from my throat. "Please, sir, put me down." But he didn't care. He kept talking about sweets, about how fun it would be to play with him at his house. Suddenly, I heard my brother's voice. "Sir, that's my sister, and we don't know you. Put her down now." My brother was 10 at the time. I threw myself to him, and everyone at the store looked at the creepy guy, who excused himself, saying something like, "I thought she was lost. Sorry." Or something like that. My brother took me out of the store and told me, "Mom was worried because you didn't come out of the store. So when I arrived, she asked me to go get you. I won't tell Mom what happened if you promise me not to be such an idiot again." I said yes to all. I never begged to go to the bakery or anywhere else again. The creepiest thing of all is that somehow I kind of knew that was going to happen to me. That was weird because being a kid of having such overprotective parents, I didn't know a thing about child abuse, but somehow I knew. I told this experience to my mom 2 years ago and she was shocked and felt guilty. I don't put the blame on her. We lived in a small and quiet town, and she indeed was a responsible parent. It's just that those creeps are ready to attack the slightest chance they find. So, creepy and highly possible pedophile guy, let's not meet again. It's been around 4 years since this happened, as I was in middle school at the time, but only very recently have I understood what actually happened. As a middle schooler, I used to play tennis a lot. At my school, you were given the option to play tennis instead of normal PE, usually just running, which I hated. I was part of the tennis program since I was in elementary school, so I knew the coaches very well. Around my 7th grade year, they hired a new coach. He was a nice older man named Ron. He was the coach of the section I would play, so for the entire year he would have lessons every day. Now, I wasn't alone in these lessons, as I usually had 3 to 4 other kids with us. Ron was nice. He would let us do fun tennis minigames where he would incorporate Disney shows or cartoons into the mix. He seemed to know a lot about kids' shows, but never had any children. He would also ask us if we saw the latest episode of Shake It Up. And he was serious. He would actually watch those shows and ask us about it. I thought it was kind of funny at the time, but looking at it now, it's just weird. So, flash forward a year and summer is over, and I'm back at school. It's the first day of classes for my 8th grade year, and I go to tennis. Immediately, I'm greeted by Ron, and he asks me about my summer. Nobody was around yet, and I was just sort of uncomfortable being alone. He says to me, "You've grown quite tall this summer. You're getting big. I wonder what else of yours has grown big now." He had been eyeing me down when he said that. But at the end of the sentence, he focused his eyes on my crotch area. He kept staring at my crotch for a good 30 seconds, silent, until the main coach comes over, pats him on the back, and tells him to start the lesson. That day, no one was there for my section, so I was alone with Ron. He insisted on touching me and showing me how to handle the racket, even though I'd been playing tennis for 4 years. So I knew how to properly swing, and he knew that. He was also quite forceful, and I just remember being very uncomfortable. Luckily, more people came into my section as the year went on, and I was no longer alone with Ron. I eventually graduated middle school and went to high school on a different campus. Never met Ron again. I didn't realize what he meant when he asked what else has grown, until a few months ago when I thought about it again. It also turns out that only a few months into the school year after I graduated, they fired the coach for unknown reasons. But some parents were told that he was fired for turning out to be a pedophile. A friend of mine actually saw Ron a few weeks ago when he went into their taxi and he was their driver. Ron immediately recognized my friend, and my friend just got out of the taxi and left. So Ron, let's not meet again. When I was 6 years old, my favorite thing to do was explore the woods by my house. I never went into the thicket alone. My friend Ethan liked to join me. But sometimes it would just be me and my neighbor Katrina, who was 7 at the time. To get to the woodsy area, you had to first cross a large tree fallen over a small ravine. Something I would never do now, but at that age I was fearless. My friends and I spent many days daring each other to cross back and forth over the tree without using our arms for balance. One particularly dreary summer day, I asked Ethan and Katrina to explore with me. But Ethan wasn't feeling too well, so he stayed home. Katrina and I set off to the obscure path that led to the fallen tree and spent a couple hours in the woods. I remember the smell of the woods and the damp, slippery feel of the leaves beneath my feet. It had rained the night before, and the woods were electric with the sounds of birds chirping and water rushing through the ravine. We were so entranced. I guess that's why we didn't hear the man approach us. My first thought was to get the hell out of there. I knew all about stranger danger, and I just had this weird feeling about the middle-aged man. Before I could tell Katrina what I was thinking, the man told us we looked like great explorers and that he could really use our help. He said his puppy ran off into the woods, and she wouldn't be able to take care of herself, so it was really important to find her soon. I hesitated, but Katrina always had a weakness for puppies, so she agreed to help him look. We set out to look for the missing puppy, but I just kept getting this weird feeling. Every time we walked towards the direction the man came from, he would tell us that he already looked over there and that we should keep looking to the other side. By that time, I was done. I was ready to nope the fuck out of there. But Katrina wouldn't budge. I told her I was leaving and she said she was going to stay. I wanted to beg her to come with me, but I decided to leave without her because I couldn't stand being there any longer. I jogged back through the woods, carefully not to slip on any damp leaves, but the fallen tree was covered in them, so I had to tiptoe my way across. Halfway across, a chill went through my body, leaving a trail of goosebumps on my skin. And I ran. I ran so fast, I forgot how slippery the log was. So I didn't even realize I was falling into the ravine until I had already hit the rocky bottom. I heard a loud crack, and I looked down to see my femur was broken and sticking through my skin. Things got foggy after that, but I guess I screamed loud enough for the closest neighbors to call 911. I'm just happy that I screamed loud enough to save Katrina. The police and EMTs found me lying in the ravine, crying and grasping at my broken leg. The last thing I remember was pointing towards the woods and telling them to look for Katrina. I woke up the next day with my leg hooked up to the ceiling in traction in a world of pain. My mom was holding my hand and she said that when I was ready, the police would like to talk to me. I asked if I was in trouble, but she said it was nothing like that. They just need to ask me a few questions. The police came in and asked me if I'd seen a man in the woods before I broke my leg. I recounted the events that happened and asked if they found Katrina. They had. When I left, the man started asking Katrina about her family, and if she had any big scary brothers that would come looking for her if she was out too late. Their conversation was cut short by my screams, and Katrina immediately ran towards the sound. Luckily, the man's reflexes weren't as fast, even though he tried. He never caught up with her. She said when she looked at the end of the woods, he was running back into him. She thought that maybe he was going to get help. Turns out there was no lost puppy. The police never did find the creepy man, but they did find a hidden bag in the bushes by where we first spotted him. Inside the bag was some rope, duct tape, and a pair of binoculars. Sometimes I have nightmares about what could have happened that day. And even now, I get chills when I go into the woods. So, let's not meet creepy man in the woods.